So, Michael, of course, last week we reviewed the 1996 version of Space Jam, starring Michael Jordan, and that was because of the release of Space Jam: A New Legacy, which came out this weekend, starring LeBron James. And there is a clip that went kind of viral, maybe not so, but it is a great clip from the new Space Jam movie that I want you to look at.
Yes.
So you've got the clip in front of you, okay?
Yes,
ready?
I believe so. Now, Luke, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to lay a lot of trust in you when I ask this. Are you telling me that that is really a scene from the movie?
That is a scene from the movie. So can you describe to me what you just saw? So first off, what was it? It was Austin Powers.
Yeah, so it did a weird, bizarre cut to Austin Powers. And then I think the next one, obviously, they stayed on that for a while. And the next one was Casablanca. And then randomly, Rick and Morty showed up at the end.
Yes, and that... And the caption to that video was, "It feels like I'm going through whiplash."
Yeah.
It was. It was like the first time I watched it, I did not kind of believe that was real. It was in the movie, but apparently it is. And I'm sure all those kids really enjoyed that Casablanca reference. But of course, the thing is, it's produced by Warner Brothers. All those things, Austin Powers, Rick and Morty, etc., have a connection with Warner Brothers. And do you know what else has a connection with Warner Brothers, Michael?
Is it M. Night Shyamalan?
It is. It's this movie.
Wow. So why didn't we see this movie parodied?
Exactly. I was like, why didn't we see any Lady in the Water clips in Space Jam: A New Legacy? You know, maybe the fucking Narf. No, what's it? Yeah, that's it.
Because
story.
Pinky and the Brain is Warner Brothers, isn't it? And Pinky goes Narf.
Yeah,
Would have been the perfect opportunity.
But imagine, fucking Bryce Dallas Howard. Like she'd be wet. You know, she'd get some great splashes in there. You know, that's a basketball term, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, but it's
that's your excuse for everything.
I shouldn't have made a basketball joke in front of you. But yeah, anyways, Lady in the Water should have been in Space Jam: A New Legacy. An absolute travesty, I can assure you of that. But anyway, let's review the actual movie now, shall we, Michael?
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are celebrating the 15-year anniversary of a film by the iconic director. I believe this is our first M. Night Shyamalan joint, and we're looking at Lady in the Water. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Lady in the Water?
Lady in the water, da da da.
Fire in the
Lady
sky.
in the water. Okay, yes, Michael. So, Lady in the Water, our first M. Night Shyamalan movie, which doesn't really seem real considering this has been going on for 3 years, but it is. And of course, we are doing Lady in the Water because of its 15-year anniversary, and also because of M. Night Shyamalan's new movie coming out, which is not new; it's old.
Oh yes.
That's what the movie's called. And so who knows what will go down there. Of course, we'll predict the Rotten Tomatoes score at the end of this review of Lady in the Water. But firstly, on to this movie. So Lady in the Water is a 2006 American fantasy psychological thriller film written, produced, and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. And it also stars him as well. He's in it. It stars Paul Giamatti and Bryce Dallas Howard. The movie was released on July the 21st, 2006. So yeah, exactly 15, or almost precisely 15 years ago, Michael. And of course, why this is great is, well, the reason why, of course, we're reviewing this movie is because Old is coming out. But, we don't normally do 15-year anniversaries, but, we have to make a special exception for this because it is iconic in many ways, isn't it? So, Michael, the budget. How much did it make?
Well...
how much did it cost first? Sorry.
I think I'm going to have to steal your thunder a bit because I know that this film had a very high budget because, and I think maybe you will mention this, or maybe you don't know it, this film, the housing complex, was constructed for this film, as I believe part of the budget of this film.
Well, I assume you watched the YMS review
yes, exactly.
of it as well.
Yes,
yeah.
And I believe I remember seeing. I didn't watch it I've seen that YMS video before because I thought it was kind of funny. And I believe I'm right in saying, and obviously I'm not great with memories, but they had a screenshot that said the budget was $60 million.
You fucking idiot. 70.
See,
I believe it was 60 because I've seen the screenshot. No, 70.
I thought that my
Even
bad
when you've
memory,
seen the screenshot.
bad memory would not let us down and give a nice classic failed guess.
Yeah, even when you've seen a screenshot, you still managed to get it wrong. It's inspiring at this
I know.
point. How about the box office? How much did this make?
Well, again, I think I remember seeing in a different YMS review that there's M. Night Shyamalan's being interviewed, and a woman said, wasn't Lady in the Water a big commercial disappointment? But M. Night Shyamalan said no, it wasn't. So, I mean, I guess I should trust M. Night Shyamalan. With that said, I assume maybe it... God, I have no idea. Like, I imagine it was a disappointment. Obviously, it's a really high budget. Maybe it only made, like, its budget back, which would be 70 million. That seems like kind of a lot when I think about who would really want to go watch this film, especially once
Is that what you're going for?
But yeah, I guess I'll just go for 70 million.
Well, you know what, Michael? That's good logic because it's 72.8.
Ah, good.
So, but very good guess. Well done. Yes, 72.8 box office from a 70 budget, $1 million, of course, dollars, and you would assume marketing isn't involved in that, in that 70 million budget, and so it probably did make quite a big loss. And I think there was a joke in the YMS review that this movie probably, or the actual production of the movie made more money not from the box office but from renting out those apartments in Philadelphia, which, to be honest, like is a smart thing to do.
Yeah,
you know, if you can actually live in those apartments.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's like I'm sure there's probably some kind of funky accounting you could do with that, some sort of embezzlement or something.
Oh yeah, of course. That's where your brain goes. But anyway, Michael, Lady in the Water. Did you like this movie?
No. I found it humorous in some ways, and that, is a type of enjoyment unto itself. But in terms of the actual quality of the movie, I would say I did not enjoy it. This was very much on M. Night Shyamalan's downward slope, or quite a way into it. What do you think?
Yeah, on this downward slope. Like, that's the thing. You said that phrase, and I was like, downward. Well, did it get worse? Yes, it did get worse, didn't it?
Well, what's the next one after this? The Happening?
Yes.
Okay.
And then after that, you know what it was?
Yeah, The Last Airbender.
Yeah, so literally, it got worse somehow. But yeah, that's the thing, because before, I think Signs was 2004, and that was when it started to... The Village, or was The Village?
Yeah, it was in between.
Oh, The Village was in between this and Signs and Lady in the Water.
Yeah.
Right, so yes, things started to kind of taper down, and this was... What you thought was the worst, obviously it wasn't, and I think, yes, this is a bad movie. It's really bad, and of course, is it so bad it's good? That's the only question, and I think overall the answer is possibly. I think honestly it could be quite fun if you're watching with friends, like I guess how the YMS review was, because you can constantly just make a load of jokes about it. But I think if you're sitting on your own, it's quite frustrating seeing all this shit happen, and you just want to punch someone, specifically M. Night Shyamalan, for making you sit through this. But yeah, it is something, Michael. This is fairly unique as a movie, I think, because of the content and the appearance of the director in it. But anyway, let's get into nitpicks first, Michael. How many do you have?
Well, believe it or not, this might sound kind of strange. I just have the one.
Okay.
But I think it's because the whole rest of the film just felt so bizarre that it was hard to kind of nitpick things.
Yeah, well, I have 5, which is my first for a while.
Okay,
but anyway,
well,
you go
there
first.
we go. All right, so my one, and it's a pretty tame one. It seems like he would have got less air from that jar than he wasted going to get it. I'm of course referring to when he's under the water. There's a scene where he uses the straw to suck out the air from a jar that's underground, or underwater with air still in it. But he has to swim all the way over to the jar, and it's a tiny little jar. And you think, like I say, he probably would have used up more air swimming over to the jar than he would have used, or than he would have gained from breathing it in.
That's one of my nitpicks.
Yeah. So my solution is get a bigger jar.
Okay. Well, one of my nitpicks is just how long he holds his breath for. And I was thinking...
He doesn't look like an athletic guy.
Yeah, exactly. And I was when he sucked the air, in the jar, I was like, is that how oxygen and air works? Is that... I don't know. But anyway, apparently, he managed to survive 2 minutes underwater when he's this 42-year-old unathletic fat guy. But anyway...
How does it make you feel that he's just flexing on you having asthma?
Holding my breath isn't that hard, I think, with asthma.
Oh yeah, okay. I actually I think I have no idea how asthma works, because I feel like I mentioned something else recently about asthma, and no, it was a while ago, and you're like, it's not really got anything to do with asthma.
Okay.
Can't remember what it was.
Anyway, so M. Night, if anything, I'm more used to holding my breath, That's how it works. But anyway, M. Night, so these are my nitpicks, that's you've basically taken one, so we got 4. M. Night's sister in this movie thinks that Paul Giamatti's character, obviously Cleveland Heap, I'm just going to refer to him as Paul Giamatti, she thinks that Giamatti is this player, as she calls him, because this young girl is found just wearing a shirt, and she assumes she is drunk, in the stairwell of this apartment. And she has a bunch of cuts on her legs too. Nothing nefarious about that, eh?
Yeah, this is before Me Too.
Oh, Paul Giamatti must be a player. Yeah, not a fucking rapist. And, yeah, like, of course this girl would naturally be attracted to Paul Giamatti. I mean, come on, like, I know it was before Me Too, like you say, but, you know, I think that would be... if I saw that scene, I would not be like, oh, good for you, man. Oh, you're really getting it on, aren't you, Paul Giamatti? Considering the type of character he is as well, as she probably...
Yeah, and also the fact he doesn't even have, like, a rich job or anything like that, so he can't even get that going for him.
Yeah, I would be tempted to call the cops if I saw that. I don't know, that's just me. Anyway, so next up, this Narth, who is called Story, the main character, or one of the main characters, is not allowed to tell people about her world, and then she does that anyway by cheating, you know, with the, like, you know, tapping her, like, elbow or pulling her hair. So, I mean, I mean,
bloody loopholes.
Yeah, it's a loophole, but then she just, later on, just does it. Like, she talks on walkie-talkie to Giamatti, just telling him everything about the scrunts. It's like, okay, well, why even establish these rules in the first place? You could just have the fact that she's nervous. I don't know. It just seems a lot of bullshit there. Anyway, M. Night's sister, again, in a very contrived way, do you remember this, Michael, manages to look at a scrunt in her mirror because she's, like, doing her makeup.
Oh, yeah, I do, yes.
Yeah. And then she sees it, I think, in the mirror, and then she loses her mirror.
The mirror gets knocked out of her hand.
Again, in a very contrived way. And she tells M. Night, I think, she goes up to him, and then nothing happens after that, I think. There's nothing comes of that, and we just go on to the next scene. So, yeah, all of that was just, why the hell was that even in the movie? And my last nitpick, I think it's very lucky for this whole plot to take place, or this whole plot to work, with the Narths and the Scrunts, that, of course, that there is a pool by this apartment complex. You know, thank God M. Night, you know, moved to this, the one pool, or the one apartment complex in Philadelphia that had a pool in it. Thank God for that. But also, thank God for the fact that you could argue, well, you know, what was the fucking explanation given that people are drawn to live in this apartment who need to live in this apartment? But so, and of course, you know, this apartment has a pool, so it makes sense kind of in that regard. But thank God also that there is this pool is right by this grassy area. Because if there's no grassy area, there's no way the Scrunts could camouflage itself, and the monkeys couldn't live in the trees. You know, the monkeys at the end, which appear for like one scene. I mean, again, like, it's just what a convenience. It's almost like this set was specifically built for this movie, so the plot could work.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and of course we've already been through that, but yeah, it's just like, because normally there isn't like this grassy area next to the pool. Normally, like, you know, it's just concrete, or there's like apartment, you know, buildings all the way around. Like, there's no point in having that grassy area there. But yeah, anyway, so just
also, couldn't he just like mow the lawn, because it's long grass, and it seems like that whole like the way they work, it needs to be kind of long grass. Like if it was, you know, short, they'd be kind of screwed.
Or he could just buy a gun and fucking shoot it, which he doesn't do. I mean, I assume you can get guns quite easily in America. That's one of the things I know about that country, and I'm sure someone has it in the apartment building. Just get a gun and shoot the fucking scrunt. You know, just pop it, you know, between its fucking big red eyes.
Well, it does. It kind of reminds me of in Signs, where literally the aliens are vulnerable to like everything. Like you hit them with a baseball bat, they're dead. You shoot them, they're dead. Yeah. You throw some water at them, they're dead.
Again, yeah.
So I guess M. Night Shyamalan likes having his very scary villains who could most likely probably just be killed with like the basic things that would kill a human being and then some.
Yes, but instead it needs to be killed by these monkeys and this guardian who's a guy with one really toned arm. And
in fact, actually, you know, I just read. So they say like that nobody's ever seen the monkeys and lived, and you could say maybe that's just like a kind of embellishment. But like, obviously, it seems like it's kind of easy to see the monkeys and live because like, I mean, sure, they're not the least violent monkeys in the world, but it seems like they're not that fast. You can basically quite easily get a look at them, as indeed Mr. One-Armed Guy does.
Yeah,
and
but
then
maybe
live.
it's because he's the Guardian, so they let him look.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's
Who the
good.
fuck? Guess what, Michael? This is all bullshit, so don't think too hard about it. Anyway, let's get into the concept for this movie, because it is, of course, an interesting one, to say the least. It's a fairy tale, You've got these young ones from the water world, the blue world, right? Trying to help mankind. And, it's a standard fairy tale. You've got the baddies and goodies, and, of course, this one tries to be a bit unpredictable, and I'd say it still fails at that. But anyway, M. Night says this is a story that he tells his children, and of course that is central to it. The characters also know they are in a story, but this isn't your average story, is it? It's a really fucking complicated one with all these little bits and pieces that the characters need to know. And I think on the second watch it gets a lot easier to work out what's going on. Watching it for the first time, it is constantly like, what? Sorry. There's a what's a scrunt again? Which one's the Narf and which one's the scrunt? I can't remember. Can you even remember right now, Michael? I bet you can't, because you're all memory.
No, Narfs are the good guys, Scrunts are the bad guys.
Yeah.
And I think aren't the monkeys called Tartutic or something like that? Tartutic.
Yeah, Tartu. Yeah, just call them the evil monkeys.
Evil monkeys.
Yeah, the evil monkeys. So the film was originally planned to be produced by Touchstone Pictures, just as Shyamalan's previous 4 films were released by Walt Disney. But ultimately, no deal was reached. Disney executive Nina Jacobson had spoken with Shyamalan about the film's storyline, the idea for which studio chairman Dick Cook didn't understand. So apparently the studio chairman didn't have a fucking clue what was going on, and he's like, I don't know about this. Good decision, Dick Cook. Good decision to spell your name.
Also,
like
because
that.
You're from the north, it makes it sound a bit like you're saying Dick Cook.
Well, let's say Cook,
which
then.
is, I mean Cook, but because I'm just saying, like, from the north, because you don't distinguish between Cuck and Cook. It just is funny because his name's already Dick.
I absolutely do. Cook.
Oh,
Cook.
okay.
Nah,
they're more, they're more definitely more similar than me saying it.
Yeah, like Cook is like cack.
Hello there, Cuck.
Cack. Dick Cook didn't get it, and he was right not to get it. Good decision. Like it was to call himself Dick Cook instead of Richard Cook. Shyamalan was reportedly angry about the response, claiming that Disney no longer valued individualism. I would say, you know what, he's not wrong on that front.
Yeah.
But of course, it's a bit hilarious to say that. When you take one look at this script and it's like you've taken a drug. I'm not surprised he didn't get his wish, but something inside him told him, no, you should keep on with this. Don't change it. That Dick Cook doesn't know what he's talking about. Disney are just, they're trying to, they're basically trying to suffocate out creativity, and that little thing inside him was his ego. Maybe actually we shouldn't say it's his little thing, it's this big fucking massive thing. Anyway, despite the fact Disney was willing to completely fund the film regardless. So that's interesting. They still, they still could have made the mistake, but of course that didn't happen. Shyamalan rejected their offer and eventually presented the project to Warner Brothers, who agreed to finance the film. So I don't know why he rejected Disney. And at first when I was reading this, it was like, okay, Disney rejected him, but no, they still went with it. So I don't know what. Shyamalan was just pissed, like Dick Cook.
Yeah, that sounds
yeah, like Dick Cook is just scratching his head, and he's like, sorry, what's a Narf again? So, Madam Narf. They come every generation. Yeah, and then they come back to their people in the water world. No, it's the blue world, god damn it. It's the fucking blue world, you idiot. I'm taking this to
Waterworld is Kevin Costner.
Yeah, that's fucking Kevin Costner. Do you think I'm a hack or something? Yeah. I'm taking this over to Warner Brothers, and he did. And of course, yes, bad decision from them, probably. So basically, like we said, Michael, with this concept, the stories. Well, yeah, it's a story within a story, and the point is, like, you think stories are the same, but they're not. And M. Night Shyamalan is different and special, so he can write this and run rings around the critics who just don't get it. That's why he's this messianic writer, and why he has to humiliate the critic by killing him. And of course, the critic is wrong in being in the story, he gets things wrong. And so the whole point of this is, the concept is, yes, it's a fairy tale to tell his kids, but also M. Night Shyamalan is a gift.
Yeah, imagine M. Night Shyamalan has some like traumatized kids because every single time M. Night Shyamalan tells the story, it's like, and then the fucking stupid critic dies a horrible death because he's a prick and I hate him.
He's so
and it's like,
fucking
Daddy,
arrogant.
what's wrong?
He thinks he's going to survive, but he doesn't. Do you know
The
why?
mum comes in like, oh god, he's angry again, like calling the abuse helpline. Like he's telling
Do you
the
know
critic
why he
story.
dies? Because he could never do what I do, because I'm special. I fucking understand stories. I'm not like these fucking hacks that claim to know everything. No, I'm the one who knows everything. But anyway, so let's get into the plot of this movie. So Paul Giamatti discovers a Narf, and believes, what she tells him, basically, that that all this mythological stuff about where Narfs come from and all that, and Skrunts are trying to get her, these like wolf-like creatures, I guess the best way to describe them. They're not dogs, we know that from the critic. So she must seek help from the others in the apartment to escape, and basically, the issue with, I think, the plot of this movie, Michael, is, of course, it's great that she escapes and all, and that's what you want to happen. Obviously, that's what you're meant to want to see. But the climax of this movie, all the most important moments, is her meeting M. Night Shyamalan, and that, of course, is meant to inspire M. Night Shyamalan, make his thoughts clear. But the problem is that happens midway through the movie. That important moment where she meets M. Night and inspires him and all that, and that, of course, that is bad because, well, that's all that she's there for, if you think about it. After that, it's just a question of her escaping. That'll be great for her world, of course, because of Madame Narf returning is great, apparently, but, not for the human world, because she's already done what she needs to do. So, if you think about it, the most important part happens in the middle, and then it's just a question of her getting back, which doesn't affect humanity.
Whoa, how unconventional.
Oh,
I can't believe that he would defy storytelling conventions.
Oh, wow,
like that.
Making the story worse. That's subversing expectations, isn't it? A bit of Ryan Johnson logic thrown in there.
Yeah. I think it would have defied conventions, because, it's a bit conventional to have, like, the prophetic character die a martyr's death. I think it would have been funnier if she said that he eats a really bad burrito from Chipotle and dies from pooing too much. I think that would have been more unconventional than his martyr's death. So, M. Night Shyamalan really dropped the ball by bowing to convention.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's basically the plot, really. So this Narf comes down, wants to find this writer to tell him some great stuff to make his thoughts clearer, finds that writer, and then, okay, well, that's job done. Oh no, she needs to escape, and that's it happens in a very convoluted way, of course, to stretch the runtime, some might say. I know that's what it does feel like, but of course, Michael, having the most important part of your movie in the middle, that's great. That's what it's all about, really. Because if I'm criticizing it, I'm being a critic, and I don't know anything.
Well, yeah, it's terrible. Yeah. No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you should back off trying to criticize things, basically, and just let the most important part of the movie be right in the middle of it.
No, yeah, I mean, definitely it does create some weird things going on, the tension, because you're just like, I mean, obviously there is kind of the emotional aspect to finding out that M. Night Shyamalan is going to die. And
I was so sad.
I know, yeah, it was really, really distressing. But obviously, that's something which needs to happen. So I think maybe, but I mean, that's the thing, yeah, it definitely should be towards the end. Because doesn't he find that out? So he finds that out before they even do, like, the first botched attempt to help her escape. Yes. Where, like, they do the whole, like, party and everything. So yeah, you just think, well, have the party, like, first, and then have that. Like, it shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, like, what they should have it. I mean, M. Night, he's writing this out of his fucking arse, so he can do this. That the Narf needs to return to the spirit world for M. Night Shyamalan's, I don't know, the prophecy to come true about M. Night Shyamalan's writing. Otherwise it's, and that's the thing, like, they set it up and it's really convoluted and they spend a lot of time in it, but at the end of the day, like, that's what I kept thinking. It's like, well, she's already done what she needs to do. So yeah, that's how I felt. Anyway, so Michael, let's get into the actual plot first of this movie. So we'll start at the beginning. We have a prologue to start, which is nice, explaining everything. I do think the prologue could have gone on a bit longer, to be honest, considering all the info.
It is funny how, like, fantastical it feels. Like, it genuinely feels like you're actually jumping into, like, a proper fantasy, and then you find out it's just this pretentious wank. Okay. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. So basically, man have forgotten to listen, and man are fighting as well. Basically, that's the thing, and they need these water people to help them. Mankind is in trouble, and I was like, well, why would that be the case? why now, basically, in the year 2006, would the water people try to help mankind? And I was thinking, well, maybe because after the Iraq War, they didn't stay around for World War II, but the Iraq War, at least that's something. So I don't know if these these blue world people are, terrorist lovers who want, the terrorists to beat the Americans, but maybe that's the case. And I was right on that. I put that down. I was like, oh, maybe it's because of the Iraq War. And then we see Paul Giamatti fall asleep, and a news report is playing in the background discussing the Iraq War. So here's the thing, lots of Hollywood liberals did not like the Iraq War and came out against it. This was M. Night's protest against it, I guess, and he came up with this story because of it. I imagine that is how it works.
So then maybe that explains everything, because just like the Iraq War was pointless and peaked in the middle and then was very disappointing for the rest of it.
Middle.
Yeah, well, like that was when we won. That was when mission was accomplished. Remember Mission Accomplished?
Mission
and then
accomplished. Yes.
Yeah, and then suddenly it just got a bit more
convoluted,
boring after that. Yeah, convoluted, yeah.
Yes. Look, yes, the killing of thousands of Iraqis was bad, and yes, the white phosphorus being unleashed by US forces, meaning Iraqi children still grow up with birth defects to this day, is awful. And of course, the fact that the war destabilised this entire region, including Syria, created a civil war there, and gave rise to ISIS, is horrible as well. But the worst thing that came out of the Iraq War probably was this movie, Michael, right?
Yes.
Probably.
This was the real crime against humanity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this was the real weapon of mass destruction. Destroying art itself. I don't know.
Yeah. America, we need to launch a preemptive strike against America before they make the first use of M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We have reason to believe that America possesses M. Night Shyamalan and would be willing to use it as a first strike resort.
Well, that's the thing. M. Night Shyamalan is going against America here by saying the war is bad. But yeah, I find that funny. That this of course it was definitely born out of the Iraq War, and of course all those things I mentioned were worse than this movie. Undoubtedly, there's no comparison. But yeah, it's something that you can maybe, if you were being a bit funny, add to the long lists of crimes that were committed in the wake of Iraq. But anyway, yeah, but tragic events produce art, Michael. That's how it always goes down, I guess. So one evening, Paul Giamatti, who's the superintendent of this Philadelphia apartment complex, sees this lady in the water, and he suspects that someone has been swimming in the pool at night, so he wants to tell him to stop. And, he sees this person, he dives into the pool instead of walking around to the side, and almost drowns Michael. And this scene is so funny. Like, he gets up, and then slips again and injures himself, and rolls into the pool, and you see his hand, come out of the pool, touching the side, and just fall away. And I'm like, if he is that, incompetent, just almost drowned himself and then slipped and fell in, how has he not killed himself yet?
Yeah, they should have recast Kevin James in this role. It's just like he falls whoa! And he can't get up because he's so fat.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, Giamatti is rescued and is by Bryce Dallas Howard, whose name is Story. Shoot me, Michael. Shoot me. When she said that name, I was like, oh, fuck off. Giamatti, basically he wakes up and sees this naked girl in his apartment, and he seems quite relaxed about it,
Because he's a player.
Yeah. He just asks what apartment she's from. No, thank you for saving my life, or what the hell were you doing swimming naked in the pool at night, and, why are you naked now? He just talks about his stutter being gone. And here's the thing about, Giamatti. We'll talk about him now. He loses his stutter, and I think it's a good time to talk about his performance, because the stutter is really funny.
Really good.
It's hilarious. The thing is, it's not a normal stutter. He stutters and then takes a break afterwards and says the normal word. Shouldn't the stutter lead into a word?
Yeah, it's like he decides to stutter for a bit and he's like, okay, I'm going to stop now.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's like, if he wants to say pool, he goes pool. Yeah, instead of going pool like that. That is how stutters work. Not they take a break, but of course Shyamalan probably told him to play it up. And yeah, he's just this pathetic character in general, too pathetic. Giamatti needs to dial it back a bit. I would say.
Hold on a minute. Wait, when are we going to talk about the milk lip thing?
I will talk about that in a bit. But yeah, again, that was him playing a role, I guess. But just in general, his performance, he's okay, we get this guy is down on his luck, but God, this is a caricature of this. It really is. But anyway, so Story says, she is scared, and, Giamatti doesn't ask why she is. He just seems incredibly uninterested, this kind of thing happens every so often. So, he takes her outside, and he sees this wolf, and then probably the best scene in the movie we get, Michael. Story wakes up and sees this wolf creature, which is of course a scrunt, and screams. And then Giamatti turns around, looks at the camera, and screams as well. It's incredible. And like Story points to the pool, and they are both screaming so loud. It was so good. Tell me you enjoyed that.
And the way he just like runs, he's like, "Ah!"
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It feels like, I don't know. It just almost makes me think about like The Simpsons, like or like any kind of like comedy. Simpsons like agitated a bee's nest or something, and they go, "Ah!"
Yep.
Run.
No, exactly.
Brilliant.
So now, Michael, we are introduced to the Asian family, or the mother and the daughter, basically. Giamatti wants to find out what's going on, so he basically just uses this Asian family time and time again as an exposition fountain. And yeah, I say time and time again, it literally is that. Like, I think it happens 4 times. You know, we get exposition from this...
Typical entitled white man.
We get exposition from this Asian family that helps the plot. It's just such a lazy way to write this, I think.
Oh, is that funny, actually? You just kind of stuttered.
I did kind of stutter.
Isn't that pretty? Like, but the weird thing is you didn't go, way to... Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Giamatti asked the Asian student if she knows what a NARF is, and I was like, this is in the days before Google, isn't it? Because this movie came out like 5 years later. You just Google everything, and you have to cut the plot in half.
Depending on the financial side of it, Bing.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, I decided to Bing this one.
Oh god. Anyway,
just Bing it.
Yeah, I think that happened. Spider-Man who did it or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's been in it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the old Asian woman basically knows this tale about Narfs being sea nymphs, there's Narf who must be seen by the one human chosen for her. You know, seeing the Narf will awaken something in the chosen one, and she will return with a giant eagle and become free. Have you got all that, Michael? You got all that?
Yes.
And this Narf is called Story, so therefore one human is chosen for this story. Get it? Get it, Michael? And that's M. Night Shyamalan.
So clever.
So he's so good. He's so good. God, he's a genius. Yeah. And you also, and you kind of joked about it before, but you like it that it's an old Asian woman telling this tale, Michael. You know, it's a nice spin.
Lends authenticity to it.
Yeah, but I was thinking, it's a nice spin because you don't normally get old Asian people who can't speak English telling the main character important details about the plot via an old story or a tale. But you're doing this one, so that's a nice, spin on a cliche of that not happening, I guess.
Yes.
Now, of course, it
yes.
happens quite a bit. So this old Asian lady also tells him about what happens when a scrunt scratches a Narf. I can't believe I just said that. And yeah, this old Asian lady goes from not telling the story to she's happy and fine to tell her daughter everything, and therefore for Giamatti everything. And like I said, 4 times this happens, Michael. Like, it happens again later on, and Giamatti, this is what you referenced earlier, has to act like he is a kid and lie down with milk on his moustache. It's so weird. Oh my god, it's such a weird scene, man. And the 2 Asian people, they don't even ask, why are you so interested in this stuff? They just
that's a funny thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, well, I don't know. I don't know if this is more appropriate later, but it's not even that interesting of like a story.
No, it's not.
Like, it's like there's literally it's just a bunch of made up words. It's like you could literally do this with anything. I could say, you know what? Okay, there are these good nymphs called blobbers, and then there's these bad things called squirkles. Like, you can literally just like the basic elements of the story are just there's some good people and then there's some bad people, and like there's not really much there to get invested in.
Yeah,
it's not quality world building.
Yeah, no, they are basically. Yeah, you're right. The story ain't great, but I like it. I like how these characters are literally, like I said, this exposition fountain. Like, Giamatti just keeps going back. It's like, when you're thirsty, you keep going back to a fountain. It's like, well, I need more exposition for the plot to be driven forward. So I'll go back to this old Asian woman, and then I'll go back again, and then I'll lie on my side and have milk on my moustache and act like a kid, because I don't know why Shyamalan wrote that, but maybe that's what his kids do, and he thought, oh, that'll be nice if Giamatti does that. I have of course, apart from the moustache, but like they have cookies and lie down, and they have milk around their faces, and won't that be a nice scene? Not at all, really weird. But anyway, so of course Giamatti gets back to his house and he finds Story naked. He asks her to cover up, and this is the born sex is the yesterday trope. And you showed me that video, Michael, about it, I think. And it is a trope that this fully grown, attractive adult woman exists, but she has a mind of a child, basically. And this is Bryce Dallas Howard's character. Like, she is, I don't know how old, she'd probably be in her early 20s, she's a fully grown woman, but she acts like a kid. And yeah, thank God Giamatti doesn't want a romantic relationship with her. Thank God for that. But yeah, he told his kids this, Michael, this part. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what his logic is for when he tells the stories, because it is a bit like, I mean, and yeah, like the kind of, I mean, yeah, I guess it's sort of lucky that this world does take place in kind of a world of innocence. So it does also make you wonder whether or not he told his kids about the Paul Giamatti's a player, and then like you just imagine like M. Night Shyamalan having to explain to his kids. So like if a guy is really good at getting with girls, that's called a player. Although I do suspect on the subject of M. Night Shyamalan telling this to his kids, I bet it literally is like when he says that, it's just like he told them some lame story where he literally did just make up. Like he thinks he's so creative, and all he did was just make up this really basic story about like oh, there was this thing that needed to go home. It was called a narf.
Yeah,
it just makes.
But
so yeah, like I imagine most of this he probably didn't actually tell his kids.
Why did he need to add that bit in the movie though, with Bryce Dallas Howard naked?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I guess
just to show because she's so innocent. Is that it?
Yeah.
Is that I do think there's. I mean, because guess what? You don't need to do that. You could just have her with clothes on, and you'd still get that idea. Innocent.
Yeah. I mean, actually, see, one of the funny things is, and I was gonna say, like, it could be like the jokes about maybe. And this is the most charitable interpretation, but I love being charitable. That part of it is like the awkwardness of Giamatti's reaction to it. And I say that because this film does kind of have a bit of a comedic slant to it. And I think like obviously there's some bits which are funny by accident, but I think there is kind of an aspect of it's trying to be like a bit
not more than
funny
any other,
in some cases.
like
Probably,
movie.
yeah. So, I think you're right about that. Yeah. But no, because I think, I mean, obviously there is an aspect of it. I don't think you can deny that. Like, it's a bit comedic the way Paul Giamatti's like, oh, can you, he's like,
but it's such a played out trope,
I agree.
Sorry to
There's
say that about this great movie, Shyamalan, but it's a played out trope which has happened many times before. Because this Born Sexy Yesterday thing does exist in film, and this is another example of it. But again, thank God Giamatti doesn't want to go into a relationship with her. But anyway, so I want to get onto another point, Michael, which is characters buy this tale. I have to call it tale to not include it with story or not confuse things. Characters buy this tale rather easily. Like Giamatti just buys all of this stuff completely. Like the fairy tale story that this old Asian lady grandma told her, like it's gospel to him. Like he seems like such a normal guy who wouldn't believe this stuff about narfs, at least not initially, but he believes it immediately and asks Story whether she is here to see someone, and she goes, yeah, a writer. And he says, what type of writer? And it's just like he's swallowing this stuff up. This guy should be like, nah, this is stupid. But it's like he falls hook, line, and sinker for this stuff, and it makes it less believable that this normal guy is believing this stuff right off the bat. You can't get invested. What do you think?
No, I agree, actually. Yeah, it's basically like you need to have a degree of incredulity from the main character in order to, I guess, buy the magic of it. Because in a way, like this film, obviously it's about like this magical element, but it's almost like, so many people just like accept it that it feels like it's not magical at all. Yeah. It's just like, oh yeah, I guess that's just what happens when...
You say so many people, it's similar to for M. Night and his sister. It's the same thing for the critic guy when Giamatti asks him about symbols and guilds. He doesn't go, well, what the fuck are you talking about? Why are you asking me this? He just...
Yeah, he takes it completely at face. Like, I found that really funny how he does that. Like, I find it really weird that he's just like very kind of biddable to just be like, oh yeah, I'll help. Let me think about this and give you... Yeah.
And then later on, the worst aspect of this happens when all the people who are important to this story, gather in this bathroom to look at Story via a crossword. Basically, the interpreter, is reading all this from a crossword, and they work out what to do to help her escape back to her world. But the point is, Michael, they all buy it, and they aren't questioning this crazy tale. Like everyone in this apartment is on board with this, like I said, crazy tale. And it comes, where does it come from? It comes from this old Asian lady, not from Story herself. And I just find it, again, it's the same thing with Paul Giamatti. Like he buys it, and that makes it less believable, makes it less magical. But then the whole apartment buys it. You're just like, what the fuck are we living in right now? I thought Philadelphia was meant to be like a no-nonsense city. Maybe this would work for like Los Angeles. I don't know, where everyone's fucking crazy, but not Philadelphia. Come on.
No, I agree. And yeah, it's definitely, I think the fact that it just makes it feel, less realistic, makes the characters feel less real, and also less kind of emotionally resonant, because you're just like, You know, it's kind of like they take this magical world and turn it into just like the logistics of like, oh man, how are we going to get this nymph out of here?
Anyway, Giamatti is going round the apartment block, asking people whether they're writers. And Story, told him, of course she's looking for a writer, but fortunately nobody is writing. The critic who flew in yesterday hasn't written in years, the old lady not for 20 years either. But right at the end of the day, Michael, right at the end, Giamatti walks past M. Night, who reminds him that his desk light doesn't work, and he remembers he writes. How lucky for him, I guess, I mean, it's a predictable way for it to happen. I guess, like, oh, right at the end, oh, that's the guy. The Cookbook is the name of the book he is writing. But it isn't a cookbook, of course. It's his thoughts on politics and culture and leaders. And Giamatti realises he might have found his man. And sure enough, M. Night gets pins and needles when he meets Story for the first time. You know what this means, Michael? M. Night Shyamalan is the chosen one. Of course, his character is. I think he's called.
And that's also not a massive trope, having a chosen one.
Oh no, definitely not. His character is called like Vic or something, I think. I can't quite remember, but we're just going to refer to him as M. Night because, of course, he is the director. He wrote this character. He is implementing himself in this movie, and normally we have got like a brief cameo from M. Night before, but no, this isn't the case. Only M. Night can unlock this story because, of course, she's called Story. Only M. Night can unlock this story, and this story was chosen for M. Night, to write since like the character is called Story. I'll just keep mentioning that because it's fucking stupid. But yeah, so Story tells M. Night that his work will inspire a president. His words will start a movement of great change in the United States. And I'm just thinking, well, like hearing this in the movie, he wrote this. Like, this is just incredible. Yeah. Like, the most...
He did inspire... He inspired Donald Trump. A lot of people don't know this, but Donald Trump's racism came from... Came from seeing M. Night and being like, oh, I hate brown people.
Okay. Okay. I mean, this is the most ego someone has ever had in their entire lives, right? To write yourself in a movie.
Oh, actually, that reminds me. When I was thinking about this, there's a classic episode of the supernatural drama Supernatural, as it's called, where in season 4, Sam and Dean discover that there has been a series of young adult novels published about their life. So they go to meet the person who's been writing these books, and he reveals that he's been writing the book describing the current, like the episode they're in right now. And they're reading it and like, hey, you're not mentioned in this. And he says, well, come on. I mean, including yourself in your story is one thing, but as a prophet, that's like M. Night Shyamalan levels of douchiness. So boom. And I was like,
that's good.
And
I like that.
Now I get that.
I like that. Yeah. Now we get this. Yeah. He's you know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of Brian of Family Guy. Oh, yeah. Who's this writer? It's like, I'm a writer. And I remember this one scene where he's like, okay, I'm going to start writing a book. And the main character is called Norm Hull. And that means normal. And that's something the scholars will get in 100 years' time. It's like that. It's like that just shallow writing and you think you're a genius. And it's just so embarrassing. And not only are these ideas that he's written down in this cookbook world changing, he's going to get assassinated for them. Perhaps like Jesus, Michael. Would you go that far? Tell me, would you?
No, I think, well, yeah. I mean, obviously also there's the messianic aspect to it. Yeah, it definitely seems like we are dealing with something very much like Jesus. And yeah, I mean, I guess obviously he kind of kneels down and accepts the will of the supernatural spirit, and he realizes, I've got to lay down my life for this society to be better.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is really heroic of him.
Absolutely heroic. So, I just can't believe someone wrote this, man. That again, the most ego anyone has ever had in anything. Like, to be a writer yourself and write yourself into this movie as the chosen one and the only one that can unlock this story, and of course, you're the only one that can unlock this story because you're a great writer yourself in the I guess in the movie and in real life as well. Because of course there is the meta aspect of it there. Like, it's I can't believe he did that. That is just absolutely crazy to me. He was on one on this one, M. Night. He was absolutely on one. But anyway,
it's brave, it's powerful. No one else had the guts to be so arrogant. Yeah.
Yes, arrogant. Well, yeah, we'll get onto that in a bit when we talk about the critic. But anyway, so let's get into the lore of this tale, Michael. So the first time I watched it, I just wrote, I have no idea what's going on. Like because there's this halfway point in the movie. Well, it's like this 15-minute period, and we're near halfway in the movie where just a load of shit happens, a load of exposition is espoused, and it's just so hard to keep up with what's going on. Like, Giamatti goes down this hole to open this door where we can breathe for like 2 minutes, like he's Aquaman. Like, why did he do that, Michael? Tell me.
I think it was to get mud, but then he didn't even seem to that was my understanding, because they said she needs mud in order to be healed, and I think it was going into there to get the mud.
So the mud was behind the door.
Well, that's why I was confused. Yeah, so I was confused about that when I was watching it, because then it seemed like he picked up an object, but like the only thing I could possibly, I don't know if you know something else.
No, I'm genuinely asking.
Okay, good, yeah, because I was confused about it, because like basically, obviously they have the scene where he says there's mud that comes from where they live, which can heal them, and then obviously he goes down there, and then he swims past quite a lot of mud in order to look at some random jars.
Yes.
So basically, I can only assume, based on like the context of the scene, that he was going down there to get the mud. But as you kind of point out, that doesn't really make any sense, because obviously, yeah.
Yeah, and of course we have the monkeys introduced called Tatwick or whatever, and their evil story is a Madame Narf who will change the world as well. Like they're adding in all these concepts.
Yeah. The Madame Narf thing is one of those things where it literally starts to feel like it is just so being made up as it's going along.
Yeah,
it's kind of like, it almost sounds like a random rule to a game. It's like, well, if you're the Madame Narf, then you can...
Yeah, it happens. Okay. The scene where it happens is when the Asian daughter like knocks on Giamatti's door and tells her, and it's like, okay, we need some more exposition. Here you go. Here's this character helpfully doing it for you, and then she like talks for like 2 minutes straight about the Madame Narf and all that, and just walks away. And yeah, it's so bad. Anyway, Giamatti, of course, he thinks he's the Guardian, and basically we find out all these people have been drawn to live in this apartment complex, have something to do with this story, and so the characters therefore know they are in a story. There is a healer, an interpreter, a guild too, and I like there's this one line. I think it's from Paul Giamatti, where he says, "You have to believe this all makes sense somehow." Do you remember that line?
Yeah. I feel like that's like M. Night Shyamalan pleading to you, like, you have to believe this makes sense, please.
Exactly. He's like he's not Giamatti. You think he's saying it to story, but he's not. He's actually saying it to the audience. He actually, they got the wrong camera shot on that. He actually said it into a camera, M. Night didn't use it. But anyway, didn't use that camera shot. And so the problem is, I guess, when you're constantly trying to introduce lore, you have no idea about the context of what is going on. It all seems so confusing, and you're literally like, well, what the fuck? Like, if you introduce some more stuff in the beginning, like that animated story, make it go 2 minutes longer and explain all this stuff, then you can understand all this context.
And you don't need, the unnecessary...
Yeah, because it's in real time, you're getting fired, like, bam, oh, here's the Madame Narf shit. Okay, here's the shit about the fucking evil monkeys, the Tatudik. It's like, bam, bam, it's like, fucking hell, slow down. Like, if this was all explained to me right at the start... a nice animated sequence, it would still be shit, but at least I have
that's
a better
the thing,
understanding. Yes.
Yeah, explaining it to the audience obviously is very lazy, but it's not much more lazy than literally just having a character who just solely serves as a massive exposition dump. They're both kind of both lazy.
That's why you shouldn't just add all this shit in, all this crazy shit. Like, if you're trying to make it like a nice fairy tale, basically, that kids can watch as well. Imagine a kid trying to wrap their head around this. Anyway, so we get to the ending now, Michael, and all the people in the apartment complex have this plan to distract the Scrunt with the party, so Story can be rescued by this eagle. But there is a problem. They've got the wrong people for the job of the healer, the Guardian, and the interpreter. And whose fault is that?
It's like a Scooby-Doo reveal.
The critic. Dun, dun, dun. Yes, it's the critic, the film critic who's been living in apartment 13B. He doesn't understand metaphors in films, Michael, does he? Like how characters in a romance kiss under the rain. He doesn't understand why characters say their thoughts out loud. Basically, M. Night Shyamalan is like creating this caricature of a critic who's like real nitpicky about everything. I mean, we nitpick stuff, but we do it at the beginning, so like it doesn't affect our view of movies overall. Like, we get it out of the way. And apparently M. Night believes that all critics are like that. They just nitpick stuff. They're all like CinemaSins, aren't they? Yeah, God, he would hate CinemaSins so much. So yes, Story believes Giamatti to be her guardian. And so Giamatti asks the critic, who's quite abrasive, to help him figure out the others' identities, the healer and all of that stuff. And working off movie tropes, the critic misadvises Giamatti, leading him to a flawed conclusion that Jury, the guy who does the crosswords, is the symbolist. The smokers, who, people who smoke and talk about Martin Luther King, remember them, Michael?
Yes,
They're the guild. And Belle, this old lady who had a butterfly on her, is the healer. And then, of course, that turns out not to be the case when Jury speaks up. The guy with the crossword is like, I don't feel like an interpreter. And, then, of course, Giamatti says, well, I was told you were. And Jury then, says...
Who could be so arrogant?
What kind of person would be so arrogant to know another person's intention? I can't believe it, man. The critic, after being asked a question by Giamatti, he just gave an answer. Like, this is the thing, Giamatti just asked him. They're like, okay, the critic gave his advice, that was it. And the critic is not only the person to blame, but he's the arrogant son of the bitch, whose role is pivotal to this whole tale. Him. Yeah, like, by getting the tale wrong and being arrogant, he has almost ruined the ending of this movie, or the story, and cost Story, Bryce Dallas Howard, her life. Incredible, Michael. I just
powerful.
Imagine, right? Like, what kind of person would be so arrogant to know another person's intention? Okay, well, guess what? Let's just not criticize anything ever. Like, it's reviewing this movie is incredibly arrogant. Reviewing Space Jam: A New Legacy, incredibly arrogant. How could you be so arrogant to know another person's intention? Tell me you.
I agree. No, I agree. No, that's the thing. I mean, it's just so. It's just so bizarre because obviously, apart from anything else, the irony of like criticizing people for being arrogant when you're M. Night Shyamalan, who's cast yourself as the Messiah, and then obviously, the very fact when you think about it, like there's something kind of arrogant about the fact that literally what M. Night Shyamalan's like doing here is being like, look, see, the critic assumed that it would follow the conventions of a standard narrative, and that was his thoughts about like why different people would be different things, because obviously the whole point is that the critic is deducing from his experience of watching films who would be likely to be the particular persons in particular in a film, and apparently, so M. Night Shyamalan's being like, oh look, but I'm not like that. This is a better film. This is a unique film with you wouldn't expect all of this to be the case. You wouldn't expect the little kid to be the person who has some kind of unique insight. That never happens. So even within this context, he's kind of being arrogant, being like, look, this is a film that you've never seen before. The critic couldn't predict this. And of course, what you're saying about how obviously there's nothing wrong with being a critic. It's completely fine to criticize things.
It's cool to criticize movies.
Yeah, it is cool to criticize movies, and it's lame to make things yourself.
Yeah, but I'll get onto that later about the kid being the interpreter and all of that.
Yeah,
like you said, then the guy also later presumes that his son is the one whose purpose is to be the interpreter, and he is right. Of course. So was he too arrogant?
Yeah, it's very inconsistent, like the rules for why the critic is considered bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's like no logic to it.
Yeah, and of course we have to talk about the scene of the critic being eaten by the Scrunts.
Yes.
Why you're not a dog at all, he says, and this is like a moment from a horror movie. See,
have you noticed how he's talking to himself about his thoughts?
Well, I mean, he's right. He's talking to the dog as well.
How the tables turn.
He's talking to the dog though, so you could argue.
Actually, yeah.
You could argue, maybe I don't know, but the point is, Michael, like it's meta and smart.
Yeah.
He also said, well, it's meta because it's smart. It's smart because it's meta. There we go. Got it eventually. The critic also says, an unlikable side character will survive this since it's a family-friendly movie, and predicts how he's going to escape. But he doesn't because he's a stupid critic who's arrogant and thinks he knows everything. M. Night runs rings around you, bitch. You think something's gonna happen. It doesn't because you don't know anything. M. Night's just on a different level. He can do things and just make you go, wow. This critic died?
Yeah. Who would have thought the unlikable character would die? This is crazy.
This is absolutely blows my mind. Again, just the most embarrassing stuff ever.
Also, I mean, it's also bizarre because it's just like the logic, I guess, like, because obviously the thing is he gets like killed immediately. Mm-hmm. And obviously he's saying like, oh, you'll try to chase me and I'll be running away, and like the implication being it'll be close, and obviously therefore the flip side of that is that, oh wait, no, he gets got immediately. Mm-hmm. But like that's something which is not really like unsurprising for the antagonist. So even like within that logic, that's a very kind of conventional thing.
Yeah.
So
he should have turned to run to the door and then just not got it. Instead of just immediately he's killed. And again, like you said before, Michael, M. Night Shyamalan mocks critics who think they know it all, but he plays the writer whose work will literally change the world for the better because he's so special and the chosen one.
Yeah, see, the unconventional thing would be for the writer to get eaten, and it turns out that the story has no predictive capacity at all. It's just, see, that's the thing, like if your job is just to like write a story that goes against convention, you can literally just come up with anything. Like, if anything, it's kind of easier.
And again, as we've learned from Rian Johnson, just coming up with different things that aren't, usually in stories like different, oh, you didn't expect it to go this way, that famous phrase, subverting expectations, doesn't necessarily mean the film is
I never
better.
actually made that. Yeah, this is literally like the beginning of the whole subverting expectations thing.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's the beginning. Maybe
Well,
Ryan
no,
Johnson could actually. He looks back and like, oh yeah, this is the movie that wanted to make me be a director. Lady in the Water. Yeah, that would be great. But okay, so of course, because the critic's wrong, he doesn't get it. But everyone else in the apartment does, because they're not arrogant. Like I said before, it's a bit weird. They find all the right people for the jobs to help Story escape. And they do this like healing thing. I don't know. It reminded me of a cult, like when they're all like touching each other, and Giamatti goes, on about healing Story, and he brings forth his energy, which is his repressed grief. And Story's wounds heal when he confesses he does not want to lose her too. That's from Wikipedia. So basically, his repressed grief saves Story. Great, I guess. And then
yeah, it's good to repress grief, because someday it might help save a mythical water sprite.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of like something you maybe expect in a movie. I don't know, a character who lets out their grief and saves the day. And of course, then the magic evil monkeys stop the Scrunts, even though they haven't done anything thus far. What a satisfying ending, eh, Michael? That's what I believe is called an ex machina.
Yes, exactly.
Is that a trope? I believe so, because it's got a name.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what
No.
are
Yeah.
you
It
doing,
is.
M. Night Shyamalan?
No. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's nothing like the idea that this is some kind of miraculous, thing that like totally defies convention. It's like, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. It's so funny when you just look at it and you're just like, well, there's nothing in here that's that like crazy in terms of defying convention. In fact, it basically just has like a whole load of kind of fantasy tropes, like right down to the. I mean, you look at like the fact you got these. Hold on, it's literally got like people being picked up by an eagle, which is like one of the like that's from Lord of the Rings.
I was going to say, yeah, Lord of the Rings. That's a fantasy trope, and also crucially, like, what does the eagle represent? Freedom, surely. So I'm sorry, Did I assume your intention, M. Night Shyamalan, that she's free, that she's being picked up by an eagle? I'm sorry. Can I say that? Can I infer that?
Oh yeah. Otherwise, what kind of person would be so arrogant to assume that you can, interpret what a film is trying to say?
Yeah, God. I mean, again, but that's the point. It's easy to interpret. That's the thing. It's easy to, because an eagle represents freedom. Certainly in America. So, like, she's been picked up by this eagle because she's free now. I don't like. It's not. He's not that smart, basically, Michael. And following on from that, the fact that Shyamalan isn't actually that clever with what he's doing, and the tropes that he is implementing in this movie are tropes. Well, obviously, but yeah, he's not reinventing the wheel, basically. The people who actually are the roles in this story, the healer, the interpreter, the guild, etc. Like, they all make sense, because think about who's the Guardian, Michael. Who's the Guardian?
Oh, so the Guardian is.
Joey.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, because of the arms.
Yeah, because he's really strong. He's got one really strong arm. So wouldn't that make sense as well? Like, that's the thing. M. Night is saying, "Oh, don't be arrogant." I can create these movies with like different characters who you wouldn't expect to fill these roles, but the strong guy is the Guardian. The kid, because of his innocence, is the interpreter.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you said before, isn't it? You said.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I was also thinking about in Attack of the Clones, the Plinkett review. It's like, he wants to show the idea of the simplistic idea come from the mind of a child. Which, that's how it is. Like, children come up with
Yoda
these simple solutions. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Because the kid's innocent, so they can see through stuff, because that's how their brains work. So, he's the interpreter because of that. Giamatti is the healer, as he's a former doctor, and, he has repressed grief.
He has to go through some healing.
Yeah, and so he needs to heal himself, and he does that. Like, it works out that way. And also, here's the big hole in his whole thing about don't expect stuff. Like, the writer is the fucking writer. Like, they get that one right, don't they?
Yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan is the writer. And Paul Giamatti assumes that, because he's a writer, and he's writing this stuff, a cookbook. And guess what? They nail that one, don't they? So...
No, yeah, you're right. Yeah, hacks.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Why is this character, who's played by M. Night, why is he actually the writer, and it's not, it's actually a different guy you didn't suspect? Well, it's because M. Night Shyamalan is playing him. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, oh, we can't mix things up about his character. No. Of course, it's M. Night's because he's so great. It wouldn't be anyone else. Of course, he would be the writer who's changing, the future of the world and influencing presidents. Yeah, we don't get confused about that, obviously, because it's M. Night, and of course, basically my point, Michael, is it is. It's a different kind of predictability, but it is all still quite predictable. It still uses tropes.
Yeah.
And even with one of the positions, it's like quite easy to see it's M. Night, and it is. And I don't get, like, again, Shyamalan acts like he's reinventing the wheel with these characters. Again, like I think I've said, and you agree, he really isn't, is he?
No, yeah, exactly. It's incredibly, that's the thing. Like, the problem is, like, going into it. I mean, it really does make you think about Rian Johnson the more I think about, like, the whole idea of going into it and being like, this is going to be like nothing you've ever seen before. This is really going to challenge you. This is going to really, subvert your expectations. And obviously, this film doesn't use that language. That's basically what it's saying. And I do remember seeing it was like an interview of M. Night Shyamalan, who was saying when he made this film, he was like, I wanted to change the rule book. I wanted to say, like, whatever you're supposed to do in a movie, I wanted to do the opposite of that. I remember actually seeing him say that. So that's how he went into this. So I was like, I want to change the rule book for writing a story. And it's like, you didn't really. I mean, if it weren't for all of the kind of like insistence and the meta stuff, if it wasn't obvious that this, like, the only reason why, in a way, it comes across like this film is trying to subvert the narrative is because it's so unsubtle in saying that's what it's trying to do. If you just, like, observe the film, be like, okay, yeah, so they made a mistake at the beginning. There's nothing too shocking about that. And then later on, it turns out that they kind of discover actually they were wrong. I mean, to be honest, like, that's literally a standard trope for, like, any mystery. The characters start off with one assumption, and then that subversion is.
Did you use the word trope again, describing this movie?
So, yeah.
No, I'm like mocking the fact that that's how we are describing what is happening in this movie, and it's how we're describing, like, what is, it's how we're describing the characters as well. And also, if you think back to how a lot of the exposition, like I said in that exposition bouncing thing, like, again, how many times have we seen movies in where characters tell information, and this information, of course, turns out to be incredibly accurate from the Asian family. And how many times have we seen in movies? Yeah, the main character goes to a side character who espouses something, and it's very lazy and it's criticized. But again, it happens over and over again in this movie. How are you changing filmmaking by doing that? That's just ridiculous. Yeah. So M. Night is a fool, Michael. Even though he thinks of himself as a messiah, he is not. What's that? What's that thing from that fucking old school British comedy show? Oh, he's not the messiah. He's a very naughty.
Oh, he's not a messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Life of Brian.
Yeah,
Monty Python.
Yeah. And that is M. Night in this movie. I just want to say one more thing before we conclude, Michael.
Yes.
I thought not only is the plot awful and garbage, and he thinks he's clever and he's not, but the movie is shot really badly by M. Night as well. That's one of the things I thought while watching this. I mean, often the camera just lingers on one character for ages. Like, the scenes are just shot really weird. Like, when the Asian daughter is telling Giamatti about the Scrunts, and telling Giamatti about what her mother told her. Do you remember the scene, Michael? You see the side of the Asian daughter's face looking down on Giamatti, and I always thought it's like they added it in after the movie was finished. Like, they couldn't get the actor. But having said that, there are plenty of other weird shots in the movie too that don't make sense. So I don't think that's the case. Like, you would expect, like, you see Giamatti from down below in this apartment, so you would suspect there would be a shot of Giamatti looking up at this Asian daughter who's telling him stuff about the Narfs and all that. But you don't. I'm like, why is it shot like that?
Lack of shot continuity.
Yeah, shot continuity. Yeah, just really bad. Yeah, camera work. The scene with Giamatti when he goes after the Scrunts, or the Scrunt goes after him, and like Bryce Dallas Howard shouts "Run!" like that because it turns out he's not the Guardian, and then it just cuts away to him, like, on the floor with the critic next to him. It's like, well, what the fuck happened? Like, you didn't. What is this? What is going on here? It is just, like, really badly shot. I don't get it. And there's, when the Scrunts grab Story, remember that? When he drags
and just starts dragging her off.
Yeah, we don't see that happen either. And it leaves her, like, on the side of this, like, river, just as Giamatti gets up to her. Like, it's just, why would you shoot things like that? I don't understand. Like, it just, things happen, and it's like, oh, I guess they've happened then. Well, I guess we're on to the next scene. Like, it takes all the drama out of it. And again, when the critic gets killed by the scrunt as well, and you know, when you know it speeds up and we zoom into the critic's back, and then he just falls on the floor, and again, it's just
that looks like it's almost like it looked like it was like a B movie, like kind of like really cheap.
It is like a B movie. It looks very cheap, and also at the end when the scrunt is looking at Joey, who is the Guardian, you don't realize that it's the case until Giamatti says it. That was the case for me anyway. I was like, when Giamatti goes, "Oh my God, Joey's the Guardian," it's like, you could have shown that with some better like camera work, so we didn't need Giamatti just to say it, but because it was shot so poorly, you needed that dialogue. And it's just, not only was the script awful, the actual shooting of the movie was terrible. And that makes it seem even worse. And it's incredible that M. Night, who was supposedly an experienced director by this point, with a budget of 70 million, would shoot a movie like this. It looks really cheap. I mean, maybe they just spent all their money on the apartment building. Like, I don't know. But I'm just surprised. Like, of course, all the shit actually in the movie is awful. But the way it's shot is bad as well. That's so confusing and just adds to how bad this movie really is.
No, I agree. No, definitely. It's like it does come across as kind of amateurish. This really doesn't feel like like a film that somebody makes like 5 films after they made The Sixth Sense.
It's
like you start with like a film that has like genuine artistry to it, and then like you get to this which looks like an episode of a TV show.
It literally is.
Which is, and even that's being like generous.
No, it is being generous. It is literally shot like an amateur, like someone who's never been a director before. I just don't understand why it's so bad. Because that's okay.
that should be like the quote. Like if you get like reviews for like that's actually quite like I just don't understand why it's so bad.
I have to say I don't. Anyway, let's conclude now. You should go first, Michael, because I've talked for a bit then.
Yeah, all right. So basically, this film is bad. I think in a way it's kind of funny. It's funny from like the perspective of, like laughing at it because it's so bad it's good in some sense. It's also funny in that there is like, I think, a genuine like awkward humor to the film. But most of all, the film is also incredibly annoying, and it's kind of fun to nitpick. And you do kind of have like this fantasy element, and I guess the irony is that the fantasy element is, at least from a narrative perspective, quite accessible, even if it's just throwing all sorts of random stuff out there in terms of the lore. In terms of the actual narrative, it's pretty easy to be like, okay, I see where this is going, which is precisely because it relies on the very conventions that this film claims to repudiate. So at the center, I guess you do have like what this film says it's trying to do. Like, it's very obvious this film has like a thesis statement, and in that sense, the film's like telling you that it's a failure. The film's like, I am a failure, because it's obviously trying to go against all of these conventions and like attack, in a way, like the idea of people using these intentions as interpretive devices through the critic. And obviously it goes, it completely fails at that. And then obviously there's just the general arrogance of how M. Night Shyamalan is presented. And I think that's the kind of thing which just, you can't really reward with a high score. So I'm going to give this film a middling 2 out of 10. So there we go.
A middling 2 out of 10.
Yes. I was thinking about low 2, but I thought, my low 2 films are actually pretty damn bad. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll say this is probably one of the most embarrassing movies I've ever seen. In terms of, like, M. Night Shyamalan should feel humiliated that he made this. Like, it's so embarrassing, man. Like, he acts like he's, again, this guy who's special. Like, of course, the fact that he plays a character who can unlock the story, and also is, plays a character that whose writings will change the world. And then him writing this actual movie with all the meta stuff, about, oh, you don't expect this character will do this, but yeah, actually I do expect it. Like, a lot of the tropes in there are expected. You're really not doing anything that incredible. I'm sorry, if you wanted to change how movies are written, you did not do that. You did not succeed. And the fact that he does all this and calls himself like a genius in the movie and thinks of himself as a genius clearly is insane. And yeah, again, that's why it is just incredibly embarrassing. It's also shot really poorly, and the actual, if you take out what's actually in the movie, the way the plot is driven forward, a lot of it is just by exposition with that Asian family. Again, that's lazy. That's really poorly written. Like, they go back to it 4 times just because that's the only idea he can come up with. And again, it is a trope, like a lot of stuff in this movie. Again, I just think it is, of all the movies you're ever likely to see, of course, there's on Half in the Bag, Michael. Of course, the Red Letter Media Show. What do they say like about those projects where it's like a director films himself like doing kung fu sleeps with an attractive woman in the movie.
Oh yeah, I can't think of the word for it.
I think it's like they say it's like a black vest. So I don't know. I can't remember. But basically, they make fun of directors who 80s independent movies who like, oh, I'm a kung fu master and I sleep with beautiful women and I'm the director and I made this movie. And that's embarrassing, and they laugh at that. This is like the $70 million version of that from M. Night Shyamalan, and yeah, it is. Again, and those people making those 80 like B movies, it's like, okay, well, it's a passion project. It's a bit pathetic, but this guy, he's a multi-millionaire, one of the most famous directors on earth, and he's doing this shit. It is incredible, Michael. It is genuinely incredible, and we may never see anything like this again. So. I don't think it's good. Like, I think it's quite bad, and of course it's really bad. We've kind of eviscerated it, but in terms of is it so bad it's good? No, I don't think it can. It's got some fun moments, but it doesn't rise up to that. So I want to put this as like a 1.5 out of 10. I'm going that low.
Gasp. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, 1.5 out of 10. So Michael, time for our predictions for the new M. Night Shyamalan movie Old. What do we think it's going to get on Rotten Tomatoes? Are you ready, Michael?
Yes.
Okay, well that's great. That's very encouraging. So guess on 3, 2, 1. 73.
56.
Oh wow. So
well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, like things I know that like M. Night Shyamalan, his movies recently have been more up and down. Like obviously, Split was good, Glass was bad. So yeah, like I'm not sure. I'm kind of guessing this one will like be one of his less good ones.
Okay, well 73 for me, 56 for you. And last week, of course, we guessed Space Jam a New Legacy, because we reviewed Space Jam. We guessed what the Rotten Tomatoes score for Space Jam a New Legacy would be. You guessed 53. I guessed 62. And before the release to the general public, including the critics, like sometime in the middle of last week.
Boo, critics.
Well, I checked on Rotten Tomatoes, and again, it was like a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do well. And do you know what it is today, Michael? Do you know what it is today?
Is it like in the 30s?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah.
It's 33%.
Sorry,
31%. My apologies. 31%.
Oh, that's fine then. Phew.
And that is exactly half what I predicted. And again, like we make fun of like Marvel critics who love the movie, so they keep getting back to the premieres, and like same with Star Wars. And you see this initial like really high Rotten Tomatoes score, and then it drops as soon as normal critics get to see it. This is that on steroids. Like, I can't believe how much it dropped, and even a Space Jam: A New Legacy is affected by this this phenomenon. So that means you get 22 points added to your score because you're 22 off, and I get 31 points added to my score because I was 31 off. I got halfway there, and that means overall your score goes up from 19 to 41, and my score goes up from 17 to 48. So instead of me winning by 2, you are now winning by 7.
Oh, what a big comeback.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, we've guessed quite differently on Old, the next M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yes. So yeah, this could be... And because I was kind of thinking, like, so far, we've guessed quite close to each other in such a way that it's unlikely for things to be in the middle of us. So it's basically just a case of whoever, whether it's bigger or smaller, that's going to be the difference. But now it could be in the middle. So
yeah, no, it's crazy how we 17 difference. So let's hope I retake the lead next week. But anyway, Michael, what are we doing next week?
Next week, we're actually back to, I can't believe it, Luke. We're actually doing a film that's good, like a competently made film. We're doing Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes, Indiana Jones for its 40th anniversary, yeah.
And then, I won't say what we're doing after that, but let's just say it's not going to be a trend that continues.
That's the thing, we have had so many bad movies, like Hamilton, The Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, literally the last good movie we did was Shrek.
Yeah, Shrek, like 2 months ago. But anyway, back to Indiana Jones, or back to good movies with Indiana Jones next week. And yes, thank you for listening. We have been selecting and reflecting on Lady in the Water because of M. Night Shyamalan's new upcoming movie, Old. And I think, like I said, one of the most embarrassing movies ever. M. Night Shyamalan is not the Messiah. He is not a genius. Instead, he's a fool, unfortunately for him. But join us next week for Indiana Jones. Michael, who have you been?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.